You have a good job. There's nothing to be nervous about. Just be yourself. You're a freaking prince.
Something I'm realizing just now is most of the funniest movies to me happen to all be parodies of a particular genre, and it's not because I just love seeing that genre get lampooned, but because in order to be in my funniest movies ever list, the joke density has to be so high that a standard narrative can barely fit in the movie. If the movie is packed to the gills with as many jokes as it can possibly fit in its runtime, the more I'll respect it. For me, the quality of a comedy is explicitly related to the bit saturation on screen. Commit to the bit or don't commit to anything at all. And if there is one man who commits to the bit harder than anyone in recent years not named Nathan Fielder or Tim Heidecker, it's Tim Robinson. I'll get to Friendship in a minute, but just so my biases are even more crystal clear, Robinson's sketch show, I Think You Should Leave, has become one of those things that just endlessly brings me joy.
We're allowed to show him nude because they ain't got no soul. I found this badass store called Dan Flash's. That's my exact style. Pornhub, Xtube. I know these names better than I know my own grandmother's.
It's never not funny, and it came out when it felt like me and a lot of people close to me needed it the most.
They said that to me at a dinner. Not everybody knows how to do everything. Driving isn't the only thing.
There's something about this sinister silliness of Tim Robinson as a performer. The characters he inhabits are all incredibly relatable once you look past the absurd premise of the sketch and read between the lines of what's going on. When Tim says,
I know I used to be a piece of shit. I don't give a rat's ass.
Despite it being an absurd 6-minute sketch, I gotta be honest, there was something bizarrely poignant about it. I too had a Dangerous Nights crew, and same goes for a bunch of Tim Robinson's other sketches. There's this infinitesimal nugget of truth about the human experience in a lot of them. I Think You Should Leave became a reference point for people who feel a little off-center or uncomfortable in social situations, people who have a habit of doing the right or wrong thing at the wrong or right time, and then let whatever they should or could or would have done fester in their minds for days afterwards. It's probably the funniest sketch show I've ever seen personally. It taps into everything I mentioned at the start of this video when it comes to what makes something a great comedy. If there's even a shred of real, unironic sincerity in a comedy, it can still be a really good movie and even a masterpiece that's really funny, but I'm not gonna say it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But Tim Robinson is one of the funniest performers I've ever seen. If you don't think he's funny, there is not a damn thing I can do that will change your mind, because his comedy is coming from purely just his face and his voice and his mannerisms and his concepts for these sketches. Incredibly simple, but at the same time is uniquely, entirely himself. No one can do exactly what he does in the current comedy landscape, in my opinion. So when I saw that Tim Robinson was starring in an A24 comedy opposite Paul Rudd, I was elated and excited. I rewatched the trailer multiple times, and something told me deep down this movie was going to be really special. And it turns out I was right. I could be talking about Final Destination Bloodlines or Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, but no, the movie I was most hyped for this month by a gargantuan margin was Friendship. Friendship is about a guy named Craig, a suburban husband and father who works a boring job and has pretty much no friends to speak of. His family seems distant or even averse to Craig's very existence. His wife and son have a concerningly close relationship, and his wife is also constantly talking about her ex-boyfriend, who is her best friend, and she also is in remission from cancer. One day, a package is delivered to Craig's house instead of to the neighbor down the street. When Craig goes to deliver the package, he meets Austin, a local weatherman and the coolest guy Craig has ever met in his entire life. The two hit it off right away, and Craig believes he's found a best friend for life, but after a social blunder by Craig, Austin respectfully attempts to end their friendship and move on with their lives, but Craig is just not understanding any of it. Some people are quick to describe Friendship as an I Think You Should Leave sketch stretched out to feature length, or maybe they see it as a bunch of I Think You Should Leave sketches back to back, but I gotta say, Friendship is a great movie, and it didn't feel like an unnecessarily stretched out sketch to me at all. It feels like a funny f***ing movie. The joke density in Friendship rivals that of my favorite comedies. It's able to have such a joke density because Tim Robinson is inherently funny to me. No matter what he does or says, the way he chooses chooses to perform it is always in a way I would not expect to see, and it makes me laugh. Tim Robinson feels like the doom-scrolling era's Jim Carrey. His energy is so electric throughout this movie, no matter how dark or uncomfortable it gets. There's something that always makes me laugh, and it's a seemingly fine and normal character suddenly being pathetically inept at some everyday task. Mr. Bean type shit. It's very simple but timeless pratfall humor. An actor being really good at sucking at something simple never fails to work on me, and Craig in Friendship is a perfect example of this. Tim Robinson is able to convey being so bad at humanity. It's something his sketch show is able to get belly laughs from time and time again, and it never gets old. And in Friendship, Robinson has 100 minutes to cook alongside writer-director Andrew DeYoung and co-stars Paul Rudd and Kate Mara. In the opening minutes, there are like 4 examples of Craig just sucking at being a person. His coffee pouring technique, his office etiquette, his small talk. I guess I was tripping earlier. Friendship does feel like an I Think You Should Leave sketch, but I guess I mean that without any negative connotation to it. It feels like an I Think You Should Leave movie, would be a better way to put it. Because Friendship takes the social absurdity of so many sketches and bottles it all into one world to inhabit for a movie. It all takes place in what is our world, but there's very subtle things that just speak to the kind of society Craig is living in. While the movie is entirely comedic and packs every scene with bits, much like his sketch show, the world for Craig is unmistakably scary and unforgiving, and he's isolated inside of it. Mostly because he shoots himself in the foot time and time again because he's a narcissistic idiot who cannot seem to understand how to exist or coexist with other people. He has a family, sure, but they act like he's barely a member of it. Craig is sort of just floating through life, just trying to exist long enough to see how nuts that new Marvel is. I've never related more. When Craig finally meets someone he thinks he can really bond with, the world opens up and shows life for the wondrous adventure that it is. He can't provide himself with that adventure, no, because he's so stuck in his small life, but when he sees the life that he could have, full of friends and making memories, that's all he wants. He won't change his own life, but he can sure piggyback onto someone else's real quick. It's funny, the blunder that leads to Craig and Austin falling out is really relatable to the child inside all of us. As adults, it's a little bit less likely to happen if you have any kind of social skills or spatial awareness or self-control, but when you're a kid, that is a real scenario you can be in really quick where you hit someone too hard after you thought they hit you a little too hard. It's so cringy in the traditional sense. It makes you feel uncomfortable and awkward and embarrassed. In a 4-minute sketch, that feeling is able to wash over you and pull away very quickly. It's in and out, you laugh and it's over. But Friendship is able to walk this line due to the space it has to work out its premise, where it's able to, after a while, legitimately build tension. The character of Craig just keeps going and getting worse, and because the movie is filled with people playing it relatively straight, that awkwardness becomes concerning narratively. It never stops being funny, but the situations Craig puts himself in are so socially offensive that it is pretty compelling. Tim Robinson's characters work really well for gut reaction short form sketches, but when stretched to movie length, not only does it pay off with a movie's worth of Tim Robinson humor, but when the movie is shot really well and the story is kind of great and the characters are interesting, it makes for a uniquely effective film. The surreal combination of Tim's over-the-top sinister silliness and Andrew DeYoung's quiet filmmaking style make for a unique and painfully funny movie. Kate Mara's character I thought was really interesting too. The wives in buddy comedies usually are not this specific of a person. She's given a really big role to play, and I liked her more stoic presence mixed with Craig's chaos. I expected this to be a buddy comedy. Paul Rudd is no stranger to buddy comedies, but when I left the movie, in my opinion, this is distinctly not a buddy comedy. It's a comedy about a guy who does not fit in and never will and should probably be in prison. If you love I Think You Should Leave, you don't need me to tell you to check this out. If you find Tim funny, you will die laughing in this movie. I for sure did. I've been resurrected to make this video, and I just had to come on here and talk about it. I laughed so hard I was missing other jokes, which is the best type of comedy in my experience because the rewatch value just goes through the roof. I've already seen it a second time since where I just stopped talking. I went and saw it again just to kind of finish and solidify my thoughts on it, and nothing has changed. I still feel the same way, but I'll say, yeah, if you like Tim Robinson or like A24 films, I think you'll be kind of impressed by this. It doesn't feel like a sketch stretched out too far. It has some really effective moments, and like I said, the legitimate tension that builds once you hold one of these Tim Robinson characters to the fire for 100 minutes. It's pretty cool to see something like this work so well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to. And with comedy being just so subjective, I am curious, what are some of those funniest things you've ever seen? You know, Spaceballs I didn't mention in the video. All of Mel Brooks stuff just has me dying every time I watch it. But yeah, let me know what some of those kinds of movies are. Not just comedies that kind of drift into drama or have that moment of sincerity, but just full stop, goofy, bit saturated comedies. Which ones do you guys really like? I would love to hear, or maybe get some recommendations if I haven't seen. Like, I haven't seen Top Secret yet, and I've always wanted to, but I'm saving it for movie night with the boys. That should be coming up. I hope I don't punch someone and get kicked out of the group. That would fucking suck. Thank you guys for watching. Later, bye.